Guys, there are spoilers for this film in this review, so if you don't want to drop the pass, well, film, then come back. You have been warned. Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan Time HD. So yeah, this is going to be a great time. Hey guys, and welcome back to an episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan Time HD, and this week we watched Project Hail Mary, directed by Lord and Miller. It is based on the novel of the same name and is starring Ryan Gosling. It is a sci-fi adventure film, and I will say this film was so fun and entertaining and whimsical. I guess it's a very good way to describe it. I haven't seen this much whimsy in a movie in a long time. Before I go on a little tangent, why I like this film, I'll tell you why and more. Back to the house.
Oh my God. So, I met an alien. He's kind of growing on me. At least he's not growing in me, you know, which was a concern for a little while.
Hey guys, and welcome back to an episode of Ticket Tuesday. I'm your host, Ronan Time HD, and this week we watched Project Hail Mary, directed by Lord and Miller. It is screenplay done by Drew Goddard, based on the 2021 novel of the same name by Andy Weir, who also did The Martian, and starring Ryan Gosling as the main scientist in the movie, as well as James Ortiz, who's the main puppeteer for, you know, his partner in crime, Rocky, a little cool alien dude that's great. I love Rocky, but all credit to all the puppeteers, but James Ortiz as well, I assume the main puppeteer of Rocky, but we'll get into that. Either way, this film is a sci-fi adventure film, right? And I'm going to say right off the bat, I think that this movie is incredibly enjoyable, and I had an amazing time with it. But I also feel like I'm seeing some people, not everybody, most people are raving about it, right? But I think some people see, like, sci-fi in there, and they see the premise. The premise is, like, there's this apocalyptic event gonna happen in the world where this parasitic microorganism is basically, like, eating away at the sun, and within, like, a couple decades, we'll have no energy, and we're all gonna die, right? Essentially. Like, the sun's gonna die, and we're all gonna die, right? That's basically the thing. And they're sending Ryan Gosling and a crew, well, not him originally, but he's sent out with a crew to go fix it, because there's a sun that for some reason hasn't been infected by this microorganism. And it's like that premise where it's like kind of a race against time to save the world from imminent doom, right? That sounds like it would be more on the level of, like, I guess, a sci-fi thriller, something maybe a little more, I guess, intense. Well, there are some intense moments, but I think you hear that premise and you wouldn't exactly expect the movie that you got. I knew what I was getting into, mainly because I heard people talking about it, and I understood that it was just a really fun adventure movie. But I also just don't really understand the aspect of, you hear the premise and, you know, it needs to be serious. And I just think that's kind of dumb, right? Because not all sci-fi movies need a profound message. They can just be fun, right? They don't all need to be a race. I mean, this is a race against time, but in a different way, right? It's kind of like a buddy movie, you know? It's got Rocky and Ryan Gosling, and they are so good. They have such a great dynamic. Like, Ryan Gosling has so much, like, I think this is just a testament to how good of an actor he is, that he has such good chemistry with a puppet of a rock. Like, I just think that is truly amazing. And but as I said, I just think that I'm just going to jump straight into it. I talked about the premise earlier, and I think one thing I really liked is that most of the movie was in the spaceship, like him trying to figure out, you know, what to do and how to save the world, basically, right? And then Rocky came along. There was another ship, like an alien ship that was in the same area that he was, trying to do the same thing, like trying to save their world. So they linked up, and they're like, how can we solve this together as a team, right? They're going to work together as a team to save both of their worlds, right? And I think that's when the movie like really, really picks up, is when Rocky gets introduced. Because then the movie it's really fun at the beginning, because like it starts with him in the ship, and then there are like flashbacks occasionally to back on Earth before he was sent on the mission. And I really like that aspect of the movie, because I think if this, in my opinion, was a lesser movie, they would have just had the whole like first 30 minutes be all the Earth stuff, and then they would have had the spaceship stuff. But I appreciate that those were shown like as flashbacks in a different aspect ratio too, which I thought was a nice little detail to show like that they were in the past and in the present. It's a different aspect ratio. I like that. But overall, I like how most of the film is the interesting stuff, right? Obviously, the Earth stuff is necessary to understand the backstory and get what's going on. Like, that stuff is good, but obviously the space stuff is better, right? It's way more entertaining. It's way, like, cooler looking. And, like, the best scenes are in space, at least in my opinion. And I think, as I've said, I keep mentioning him, the little rock dude. I love him so much. He was probably my favorite character in the movie, although Ryan Gosling's character was also really, really likable. I think it's funny how Ryan Gosling can do, like, really serious, like, really serious roles, and also really fun comedic roles at the same time, and just be as good as he was for either. He's not better at one or the other. He's just as good for either kinds of roles. Range, people. Very good range. I very much appreciate that. And I think it's just, I don't know, there was just so many, like, I guess the movie was just so charming, I guess is maybe a good way to put it. I think, like, the film, even though, obviously, as I said, there are, like, serious, tense moments where, they're trying to, like, get something done, and they don't know if they can do it, and then everything almost goes to shit, and they almost die, right? And obviously, like, you gotta have stakes, right? You can't just have it be silly, funny times the whole time, right? You gotta have stakes and take it seriously. But for most of the time, it was just, like, a really fun adventure, I guess. It was an adventure, And I guess obviously that's in the name of the genre. And what? What does that even mean? Either way, I guess the film felt whimsical, I guess maybe is a good way to put it. Like, the adventure felt so, I guess, awe-inspiring, because the sets were so good. I think, like, they said that there was no green screen used in this. They used, like, backdrops or, like, lighting, and I think it looked way better than a green screen, like, background space would have been, because it's just, I guess it just feels so mesmerizing. I'm trying to use a lot of buzzwords here. But I think, like, the scenes where he was in space, or when he was in front of the planet Adrian that they discovered that was actually the planet that the microorganisms came from, and the reason that the sun that Adrian was orbiting, the reason that sun hadn't been, infected by the microorganisms was because those organisms had predators. They had natural predators on that planet, so they were an invasive species that spread. I mean, I said earlier that the film doesn't really have a profound message, but it does have a message. The message is invasive species are bad, right? And that you should kill them. And it's obvious. Obviously, this is the most extreme invasive species ever, because it's literally destroying entire solar systems, basically, right? But, I mean, that scene where, like, he's, like, collecting samples of those organisms in space, where they're, like, over the planet, and there's, like, these pretty red lights, and it just looks really nice, and, but only he can see it, and he's, like, spinning, and he's looking at it, and Rocky's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm having a moment. That was a little funny, but it was a really beautiful scene. Like, I guess the movie just looked really beautiful. It was really colorful, right? I think, like, I want movies to have color like this. Like, I want movies to have a lot of color like this, and be inspired, though. Like, I think some movies can have a lot of colors, but overdo it. But I think this movie, like, it was just right. You know what I mean? It was just right. And I think it was genuinely, like, beautiful to look at. There were some scenes that I was like, man, that is fucking gorgeous. Like, there was so many times, I didn't say it out loud because I was so mesmerized by the scene, but I'm like, damn, that looks fucking good. That looked good. And I guess that's why I also love that Rocky the puppet was a puppet. He wasn't like a CGI anything. He was an actual puppet that was like, moving around and actually interacting with Ryan Gosling in the scene. And I think that looked way better. If he was just like a CGI whatever, I don't think it would have looked half as good. And I believe that because I think like Ryan Gosling was able to get a better performance and have better chemistry because he was actually looking at something and talking to something. Like, I will always prefer puppets. I don't even care if the puppet like if it looks like maybe objectively worse than CGI. I don't care. It's practical. It's actually there. I prefer the puppet. I don't want the actors to stare at a tennis ball. All right, I want them to actually like interact with something on screen. That's a little side tangent, I know, but I like practical effects. Okay. Either way, I also liked how the film was kind of a one-set movie a little bit, right? It was mostly on the spaceship. Obviously, it wasn't a complete one-set movie because they had the stuff on Earth and they had the scenes in space, like outside the ship. So obviously, it wasn't a completely one-set movie, but most of the movie consisted of the spaceship and also like the docking thing from Rocky's ship. And I just think that in general, I think the film flew by, as I was saying. The whole film just had this, I guess it was hope. There was I guess people are calling it hope core. This is a hope core movie. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but there is a lot of hope at the end of the movie because, they succeed. Now the main characters die, and basically the world is saved, right? He saves the world, gets the vital information that they sent him out there to get, and, they're able to drive away the invasive microorganisms. And, well, obviously, I also save Rocky's world as well. And I also like the parallels. You know what they say, all good movies end the way they begin, which, I mean, is a little hyperbolic. Not every good movie ends the way they begin. But this movie ends in a similar way to the beginning. It didn't end the same way it started, but it was similar because he wakes up in the spaceship, right, from his little cryo, like, chamber thing. And then he gets up, and then he's, like, confused, and then after a little bit of him being confused, they cut to a flashback of him in his classroom teaching, like, kids, because he's, like, an astronomy teacher, right? So he's teaching them about astronomy and science and stuff, and he's talking about, like, the evil organisms that are eating the sun, kind of an introduction to the problem. But at the end of the movie, he wakes up in that same cryo chamber, but instead of him being all confused and whatever, he wakes up and he gets ready for the day and he, goes out, has a conversation with Rocky, and then he goes to teach a classroom of kids. But he's not teaching human kids. He's teaching the Rocky's species. He's teaching their kids about astronomy, right? And they say earlier in the movie that humans had knowledge about things that Rocky's species didn't know, right? Like radiation poisoning. They didn't know about that, right? And that's what killed most of Rocky's, like pretty much all of Rocky's crew except him. So he's teaching them things. He's teaching them all the things so they can be they can progress as a species, right? They can progress in technology and this and that. And so it basically ends the same way it begins. He wakes up in the classroom. Either way, I'm going off on a tangent here. I just there's a lot of little details that I liked about the movie. I liked just everything about Rocky. Honestly, he was one of the best parts of the movie. I loved when he would talk to Ryan Gosling. There was the little computer text-to-speech thing that would translate what he was saying. And it was funny because obviously it wasn't a perfect translation. So when he was like happy, or when he was like trying to have words of encouragement, he would be like happy, or great words of encouragement, right? And then he would say or when he was like very amazed, he would say amaze, right? I don't know. I guess there was just a lot of enjoyable things. You get what I mean? I've kind of been rambling here. But overall, I think this was just a hell of a good time, and I would absolutely recommend it. It is probably, no, not probably, it's probably one of my favorite movies of the last few months. I genuinely think this was just outstanding. Great time. But what would I rate it? you might ask, what would I rate this film? You know, I think I would rate this film an 8 out of 10. And, yeah, I think that's what I say. I think it's my piece. So, guys, I hope you like this video. Share it with friends. Subscribe. Turn those notifications on. Comment down below on how much you liked it. But you guys know how it goes. I didn't really mean to say that. What I really meant to say, so if you guys hated this video, unsubscribe, dislike, and tell me how much you hate me in the comments. And I've been Retro HD, off to save the world. So, I was doing some research on this movie, right? And I saw that MGM acquired the rights to this film before the book even came out. So I've never heard of that before. Maybe that's commonplace. I don't know. But the fact that MGM were like, oh yeah, we know this book's gonna be fucking rocking. That shit's gonna be amazing. So we're gonna get Lord Miller on this bitch, and it ain't gonna come out until 6 years later. But we know that it's gonna be a hit, and it was. So I respect it. I respect the like the glowing orb they used to be like, yeah, we got this. We got this in the bag.